It's a all too familiar story. State Republicans trying to take control of a Democratic-run city with a largely black population. Surprise, surprise. Happened a decade ago when Michigan took over the city of Detroit, and right now it's happening in Mississippi. Republican state lawmakers are moving to set up a state-run court in the city of Jackson that would be unaccountable to the city's majority black population. And it's happening in Missouri, where Republican lawmakers and St. Louis police are pushing to bring the city's police under state control, taking power away from the city's mayor, a black woman. The pretext in both Mississippi and Missouri are rising crime, but as a Missouri state lawmaker from St. Louis pointed out, the legislators pushing for this takeover aren't even from his city.
You don't live in St. Louis City. It would have been very appropriate, in my opinion, to talk to several residents that live in St. Louis City to figure out how do we work together to figure out the crime. Because I probably could tell you a lot of us would say it's bigger than policing. No matter if police is under state control, local control.
Joining me now is the mayor of St. Louis, Missouri, Tishaura Jones. Mayor Jones, thank you so much for joining me this evening on All In. So I'm going to start with this. And I know this may sound silly to a lot of people across America who are like, wait a minute, why is the mayor not in charge of chief police? What the heck is going on? Why does the state of Missouri even care about running the police department in St. Louis? Don't they have other things to be concerned about? What's been said to you as to why the state even wants to get involved in this process?
So, Jason, thanks for having me. It's great to see you. So, voters overwhelmingly approved that we could have control of our police department back in 2012. This law was in place since the Civil War. And we got control of our police department back in 2012 by a 56% margin of voters statewide. And in the last 2 years, I would say that since I've been mayor, there have been attempts to try to move us back to state control, which does not make us safer, because if we look across the state in Kansas City, they have had rising crime or rising homicides in the past 3 years. They've had their most 3 violent years on record. And this is not a knock on my brother, Mayor Quinton Lucas. These are just the facts.
So this is one thing that I want people also to understand in context. You were elected in the wake of the sort of uprising in Ferguson, Missouri, the killing of Mike Brown. And one of the things you ran on was smart policing. You were not trying to defund the police, which nobody ran on. You were not antagonistic to the police department. You simply said, hey, there's a better way to do this. You have a policy here. You tried to implement a new oversight plan, which means closer scrutiny of the police. How have police unions and local Republicans responded to the idea of actually putting civilians in control of the police, which is not an uncommon practice in many cities across the country?
Well, we just passed the law at the Board of Aldermen last year about police oversight, and the police union responded by suing us. And I've repeatedly said, if you are a good officer, you have nothing to worry about when it comes to civilian oversight. So we are trying to address the root causes of crime, poverty, housing instability, substance abuse, and the like. And we're trying to be smart on crime by alternatives to policing, deploying the right police to the right call, or the right resource to the right call, and standing up an Office of Violence Prevention to make sure that we're coordinating all of our community violence intervention programs.
So one of the things that anybody is concerned about when it comes to police is whether or not they can respond on time, and then whether or not the cases that they are called to respond to are actually solved, adjudicated, handled properly. What would be the consequences day in, day out? I'm a regular person. I live downtown. I may live near the former St. Louis Center or the Arch, whatever, wherever I live in Metro St. Louis, right? What would be the consequences to my police service if the state were to take over the police in the city of St. Louis? How would that affect regular people in a negative way?
It would be complete chaos to start with, because there are no funds allocated in this bill to even pay for these services. Let's start there. They would have to purchase all of our equipment, all of our buildings, all of our cars, and the administrative process would be chaotic. So let's start there. That we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and none of that has been allocated in either of these bills that are moving in the Senate or on the House side. And also, the people that represent you as far as law enforcement would not be accountable to the people. We saw this before when we were under state control. There was a governor-appointed board of police commissioners, and they were not accountable to the people.
So what you're saying is the state wants to implement an unfunded mandate. That's almost like defunding the police that the Republicans have been complaining about, Mayor Jones. What a crazy idea. I want to close with this because I think this is really important.
I didn't.
I did. I just wanted to point it out. I will also say this. We're in Women's History Month. You are a historic mayor to be elected. I know you may not be able to say so, but do you think that some elements of this resistance happen to do with your particular leadership? Do you think that this is also about you, a way to sort of take power from you as opposed to a real concern about the lives and safety of people in St. Louis?
Yes, absolutely, because there was a constitutional amendment passed back in November that was directly affected Kansas City's mayor and his control of his police department, Mayor Quentin Lucas. And then we also see what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi, under Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, which you talked about in the opening. This is about trying to take control away from Black leaders in several cities around our country.
Mayor Jones, we're going to keep on this story. Thank you so much for the great work that you do in the city of St. Louis.
Thank you, Jason. Good to see you.